Hey everyone, I had some questions on this last problem, and I know there's not too much time until it's due, but hopefully this will help you if you're still struggling with it, or maybe if you thought you had it, but you watched this and you realized you got it wrong, you might have some time to go back and fix it. So the idea for this problem is to create an orthogonal multiview of this shape. So that means we want to make a view that shows the front, top, and right side of the object. So if we zoom in onto this object, the front is going to be, if we were looking at it, I think I would choose this direction to be the front, because you want your front view to be kind of the most complicated of the views. So the faces you would see if you were looking directly at this from the front are going to be like this face. You would see this face and it wouldn't look like it was slanted. You won't be able to tell it's slanted. And then you would also see this face right here. Everything else you would see from like a different side or the top view. So like from the top, if you were looking from the top, so from the top, you would see this face here. So I guess you could say looking down. Sorry, that yellow is kind of hard to see. Let me redraw this picture. Wait. There, you'd see that face. You would see this face. You would see this triangular kind of face with that little cutout. And then you'd actually also see this face right here that I had previously shown also in purple, and that's because it's at a slant, so you'd see it from both perspectives. Then you could consider the right side. So the right side would be as though you're looking at it from this direction. So from this direction, you see this face would be the closest to you. Then you'd see this little face right here, this little triangle, and then you'd also see this slanted edge here that was previously also in purple. And that's because, again, you can see it from both views. So those are the three sides we're going to draw, and we're going to draw them on this orthogonal grid paper. So orthogonal just meaning 90 degrees. And then we usually line it up so that we would put basically that front view that we have in purple would go here. Then the top view would go basically right on top. And then the right side view could go over here to the right. So I'm going to start with that front view, which is what we saw in purple. And so I think maybe the easiest thing to do is to make sort of, we could make construction lines that sort of describe the outline of our shape. And I'm going to make this in a dashed line. And that way we know kind of the boundaries of our shape. So that means we need to know the size. And if we're looking from the front, so the purple stuff, we want to know basically how tall this object is and how wide it is. So for the height, if this like basically is the top over here, then it drops down to here, then the height is going to be from here down to here. Basically, how many squares is that distance? And we can count. It's going to be 1 block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 blocks, 5 blocks. So I know it's, can't change it. It's going to be 5 blocks tall. And then the total width, so if we're looking like left to right, the total width is going to go from this edge all the way over to this edge. So it's basically how wide is it from, actually I should draw it from this point. How wide is it basically from corner to corner? So if we were to put this whole thing, this whole object in a box, maybe that's what we can do. If we were to put this whole object in a box, the box would basically look like this. Oh. Nope, that was too far. Oh, did I not go far enough? My bad, did not go far enough. Or went too far, perhaps. Ah! I'm erasing all my... Oh boy. So if we were to make this box, basically a box that encompasses this whole shape, we can see that that box is 5 high. And then we can count the width here, and the width is going to be how many blocks wide it is. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oops. So that means that this dimension here is 8. Okay, so what does that mean for our front view? That means that our front view is basically going to be encompassed from what we see if we were looking directly through that front window. So it's going to be 8 wide and 5 high. So I'll come over here, and this is where I wanted my dashed lines. And I'm going to make a box that is 8 wide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think that's 8. And 5 high. And so everything has to fit in this box, essentially, for this front view. So the front view, actually, maybe I'll move that so we can see it a little bit closer. So the front view, we can see, maybe we can start with this face that we'd see first, which would be the slanted face on the bottom here. So maybe we'd see this first, and we can see that this basically covers the whole length, and it is, oh wow, it is 2 boxes high. So we can see that from basically from here to here. That is a distance of 2 blocks. So that means that we would have a solid line representing that face right here. So even though it's slanted in our 3D picture, if we're looking directly at it and we're not paying attention to depth, then we can't really tell that it is slanted. So then we can see, if we look at the left side here at this little wedge, we can see that this wedge itself has a width of 2. Basically, we can see that that is 1, 2 right there. So if that width is 2, then we can draw that to our picture, and its height is going to be 3, because we can see if we were to look here, it goes 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 gaps basically, so it's going to have a height of 3. Oh boy. There we go. So we can draw that over here. Sorry, I'm gonna have to zoom in. So it has a width of 2 and a height of 3. There we go. So that little edge there represents this wedge we just drew. Then we can see it does go over a distance of 2 before it drops down by this 1 step here. So then it goes over 2, drops down by a step of 1, and then it comes back straight over to the right. So that's actually it for this front view. We could leave that dashed line there if you wanted to, but you don't have to because it's really not part of the drawing. But I'll leave it here for now so that we can see where we should be drawing our other parts if needed. So now what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to draw the top view, but I want it to line up perfectly with this front view that I've already drawn. So that means I'm going to basically extend this edge upward. It's not letting me draw a perfectly straight line up here. There you go. Roughly like that, and then I'll extend this edge the other side over as well. So these hard to see yellow lines that I just drew, they basically correspond to the top width here. So it's still a width of 8. And now we are going to be looking at what we see from the top down. So again, from the top down, we would see this yellow wedge that I already have highlighted. We would see this part here, we would see this part here, and then we would see this triangular sort of section. So that's what we see from the top view. So the easiest would be probably, or what we could do, is again draw our square. So this is a 5 by 8 again. So I'm just going to draw another rectangle that is a 5 by 8. And I know, or rather, sorry, we don't know that it's a 5 by 8. Let's figure it out. So this distance is our last distance that we need to find. And make this solid. It's going to be basically, what is this distance? And that's going to be the height of our box on the top. And we can see that that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Distance of 6 blocks there. So that means that this rectangle that I'm drawing right now has to have a height of 6 because it represents that distance of 6 we just counted. So it has to fit within this little yellow box that I've just drawn. Okay. So if we start with, let's start with the back edge because I think that's the easiest part to see. We can see that again, this block right here is a distance of 2 by 4. So we would draw a block on this corner that is a 2 by 4. There we go. And then the rest of the shape, which it should also be a 2 by 4, continues throughout the rest of our box. So we can draw that as here as well. We do have to draw this little line in the middle. We have to draw this line because that represents the fact that we just kind of had a step down between the two. It looks flat from the top because we can't tell what's far away and what's close. But from the 3D view, we can see that there is a step down. We just wouldn't see that in this particular case. So this triangle shape right here, we can see that that slanted edge has to connect from this front corner to basically the back corner of what we have remaining. So that would just connect from this front corner back across that diagonal. Pretty much. And then from the top, we actually also view this little sloped face, even though it's from the top, it's sloped. We wouldn't be able to tell that it was sloped from the top view, but we can still see it. And we can see that it jumps out a distance of 2. So we would actually draw it just like, no, not like that. We would draw it just like this. And that is actually the top view. We can see we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4 different faces. So we see 4 different shapes from this view. All right. And then from the right side, I'll come over here. We've got our, we already know how tall this right side has to be. It has to be the same as what our front side was. And again, we can just extend those lines straight out from our front view so that everything lines up correctly. So from the right side, we also saw that it has a height of 5. We also already did that calculation. So then that means that our box should have a height of 5, which we already know. And then it also has a width of 6 that we know from here. So then we can count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so our final picture is going to fit within that little box. So again, I'll start with the one I have highlighted here in blue. So that's going to be a width of 2 right here. Oh. But it only goes up 4. It doesn't go all the way to the top. There's that little gap there. So it would only go up 4, and it has a width of 2. So we can draw that right here. Gosh. My precision on this iPad is not great. All right, so there's our little blue shaded box right there. You can see that you could actually see this little face right here as well. So that's going to look like it's just stacked right on top of this box. So we'll add that right here. Hopefully not like that. Gosh, I don't know why this is hard for me. My pen just doesn't quite. There we go. It doesn't quite line up. So in some cases, I do think it's easier to draw this if you have a actual ruler, because then you can draw these perfectly. All right, so from this right side view, we also see maybe this slanted face here, but from the right view, we see that it only looks like it has a width that goes from here to the edge. So that's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 squares, which is exactly what we have left here. And it's 2 squares high, so we can just draw that in right here. So even though it's slanted in our original picture, it's going to look flat in our multi-view. And then the last face we have is this little triangle. So that triangle goes up to the top, and it started 2 over, so it's going to start actually right here, which is perfect. And then it has a base of 2. Oof. So it's going to go just like so. If I can get it to snap in where I want. Good enough. All right, so that is actually the same thing. There's our multi-view. We can erase all of our extra lines or extra notes here. You can keep, like I said, you can keep those dashed lines if you wanted to. If you're drawing them by hand, you probably can draw them really lightly, or you can erase them and see how everything sort of fits together without it. But that is the multi-view. If you wanted to do like a quick check to make sure everything's working out, you can actually basically go through and make sure things line up. So this, for example, this flat edge here or this slanted edge here represents this edge that you can see in both views. And you know it's got a height of 2, so you can check that the height is the same across your 2 views where you can see it. So those line up, those are the same height. That's excellent. Obviously super basic, you can make sure that it's the same height, so it goes from the bottom to the top, so that's also very good. You can make sure they're the same width, so that's the same width, that's perfect. We can check like this little triangle shape here, which is from this view here, we can see that that lines up left to right. And then we can see that it also lines up in this picture. The top to bottom will line up across the front and right side views. So those line up. Another cool thing we can see the step. Oops, don't do that. We can see the step right here, and we can see that that lines up with this object line up here. So that object line represents a step down. The object in the top view represents a step down that we can see in the front view. So those are just some things to check your answers. Basically make sure that the features line up, top, bottom, left to right, to make sure that your image is correct. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. I hope you're having fun. I love sketching. If you're having trouble kind of grasping these concepts, like don't stress about it too much, as this is really the biggest part. I guess our puzzle cube project also uses sketching, but this is really covered extensively in Engineering 22. So definitely, if you want to learn more, if you feel like you couldn't learn very much in this case, definitely think about taking Engineering 22, Engineering Design Graphics, in the future.